Okay, so we're back at it, and I'm doing all this in the same day. So right now, I only have about an hour and 15 minutes in the skinning, the field dressing, and the deboning the deer. And so right now, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to take these muscles, these pieces of meat that we cut off the hind quarter, the back strap, and I'm going to show you how I cut them up for either hamburger meat or cut them up to be frozen and used later on for whatever you want to do. When it comes to the back strap, there's so many options with the back strap. So let's do that first, and I'm going to get you zoomed in here to my cutting board. Notice my setup. I have a nice setup, and I'm doing it outside because it feels really good outside. There's a pretty good wind, but it feels good. So you see that cutting board? A friend of mine gave me that cutting board. That is a really nice big cutting board, and I'm just working on my tailgate, so you don't have to have a butcher shop to process your own meat as long as you have decent enough weather where you can be outside. Okay, and what I use, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all my meat that I've cut, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight to get it good and chilled down, because this deer has only been dead since about 7 o'clock this morning, and now it's 20 till 2. So, you know, do the math. 7 hours, almost 7 hours. Anyway, I just want to show you what I do. All right, so let's do something easy first. Let's do the back strap. All right. So what I do with the back strap, and I have a couple knives that I do this work with. One of them is a Knives of Alaska knife, and the other one is that's a buck fillet knife. I picked that up at a thrift store for, I don't know, I think I gave $10 for it. Real simple though. We need to get this really chewy sinew, this part of the back strap, off of there, or you'll never be able to eat it. All right. By the way, that's what a lot of people use that sometimes to back a bow if you're making a self bow, and I've used some of it. All right, so all I'm going to do is, like I'm filleting a fish, I'm going to cut down to the sinew, and I'm going to turn my blade, and I'm just going to like fillet that off of there. See there? And now I have a piece of meat. I'm gonna freeze that just like that for later on. And then if I want to, I can come back in here and I can try to see if I can get some more off there without getting. And I did. I got a little more off of there. And then I'll turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. This works out better. I will say this: if the meat is, let's say it's been in the freezer and it's still about 10% frozen, it seems to work out a little better. You see what I've done? So I did miss a piece right here, and I'll come back in here and I'll get that off there and try not to get a lot of meat with it. Voila! So look at that beautiful piece of meat, and we can do hundreds of things with this meat. You want to get this silver meat off there in case it's, well, it'll be real chewy. You could do a lot with that, but what I'll do is I'll put this one in an oven in a bag, freeze them, and then when I get ready to figure out what I want to do as far as preparing, then I'll get it out, thaw it out, and cut it up, do what I want to with it. If you haven't seen the video on making the deer roll-ups, go to my playlist and look for deer roll-ups. One of the best things you can do. And my children have requested these again. And by the way, my children are grown. for Christmas, they have requested deer roll-ups. That's how good they are. Okay. Now, here is one of the muscles off the hind quarter, or one of the pieces, I should say. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut down these lines and separate out these muscles. You see right here, see how these muscles separate, and what you're going to find is there's going to be some glands or something mixed in here where these muscles come together, and we want to make sure we go in there and get those out of there. We don't want to grind that up with our meat because it could maybe affect the taste. All right, so I'm going to separate out these muscles. Make sure I get those glands out of there. Now this right here is you really don't want to grind this up with your meat. That stuff right like that right there. Just kind of check that out. Now you got all this silver stuff on the outside, and if you want to, you can lay this meat down and go in here like I did the other one, and just fillet this meat off there like that. Fillet it off there. Like that. And for me, as far as grinding goes, I cut it up into chunks. I'll go back and cut it in chunks about like that that'll go in the neck of my grinder. Just lay it there and cut it. Put it in my pan. Tonight I'll put some aluminum foil over that pan and put it in the refrigerator, get it nice and chilled. One thing you don't want your grinder to get hot. And so what I also do with my meat grinder, and I may even walk through that, is to put it in the freezer and get it good and cold before you start grinding. Alright, so that was part of that one. I go back in here and there again, kind of fillet that off that white silver part. Might as well leave that there and cut it up. I'm just, here again, this is not as complicated as people make it out to be. It does take a little time, but there's a satisfaction with being able to take a deer, you know, that you've killed, that you've harvested, and take it through the whole process from point A to point B to the place where you're enjoying it at the table. That can be a real blessing. Okay. Make sure you appreciate your red meat also. I think it does. Makes you be a lot more thankful for these things. Now what I can do, alright, so there's a lot of this gristle and chewy stuff on this meat. I can go back, I can save this, cut it up into strips, and make jerky for my dogs. And that's probably what I'll do with that. But like these pieces I cut off the front shoulder, I'll just trim them up, cut them into manageable pieces. You know, try to get as much off of there as I can. You can grind a little bit of that stuff right there. It doesn't bother me. Some people want to get all of it off there. Some people are real particular about it because they don't want the deer to have they say it has a wild taste. Well, I don't know what that is. To me, deer meat tastes like deer meat, like it's supposed to taste. It's supposed to taste like deer meat. It's not supposed to taste like beef, right? All right, so here's the other part of that hind quarter muscle. And so what I'll do, come in here and separate out these muscles. Look for that, see that gland right there, whatever that is. I'm going to get that out of there. Again, it's got a lot of that silver on there. Now, if you grind it, if you have a good grinder, it'll grind up a lot of that stuff. You just have to decide how much of that stuff you want on in your ground meat. Let's lay that aside for the dogs. All right, I've got it on this one. You see all that? So there again, I'll just go in here and like I'm filleting a fish and try to fillet that stuff off there. I got most of it, not all of it. Just look it over good, make sure it's like you want it. Just look at each piece, and if you need to trim some more, then trim. If it gets to the point where you like it. There we go. Okay, I think that's probably enough to give you an idea. Now here's that's going to be the roast, the neck roast off of that one deer. And what I'll do is I'll trim it up, look it over good, and I'll freeze that like it is, and that'd be good. If you got a pressure cooker, man, you could cook that thing down with that pressure, and then pull that meat, and then cut it up real fine, and make you barbecue sandwiches or something out of that. That'd be really good. Or you could put it in a crock pot and cook it, slow cook it with some potatoes and onions and carrots, peas or something like that. Make you a nice stew too. That'd be really good. So look, that's a really good size neck. All right. So one of the reasons I'm showing all this is, I mean, I would go broke if I was taking every deer that I killed to the processor. I mean, okay, so you say, well, I don't have a meat grinder, they're expensive. They are expensive. I bought mine used, and I've had it for, well, probably 20 years now. And I bought it for $125 from a friend of mine, and I've been using it now for 20 years, doing about, probably counting the deer I do for other people, my family, probably doing about 20 deer a year for 20 years. So it's done 400 deer, and it was $125. So it paid for itself, 19 years ago, basically. well, so it's not that hard. I mean, you can't mess it up unless you get a lot of contamination in your meat, or your meat gets warm and dirty and stuff like that. That's what I see a lot of times. Guys are not thinking ahead about, being successful, and so they're not prepared when they kill one. And if it's warm, it may get warm. That's going to affect the taste. If a deer's been running a lot, that could affect the taste of the meat. If it gets contamination with urine and feces, that could affect the taste of the meat. And that's why, I bring mine home most of the time right away, and wash them down, skin them, cut them up, wash the meat again. Several times I'll rinse them in the cooler and drain the water out, and then cool it down immediately. I start cooling it down, and then like today, look, I'm gonna put all this meat in these tins that I showed you. Cover them with aluminum foil. I'm gonna put them in the refrigerator and get them nice and chilled for when I get ready to grind tomorrow. The meat will be cool, and I'll grind this. It'll take me about an hour to grind all this deer meat up, these 2 deer, and which I'm not grinding the back straps. I'm leaving those like they were, but I'll grind all those, and then I'll vacuum seal them, and it'll probably be about, I'm expected to have 20 to 25 packs of ground meat out of these 2 deer. 1 2-pound packs. All right, thanks for joining me.